Eric Muathe with Muathe.com. In this study video, let's take a look at Costco's chart, and we're going to be looking at previous setups and take a look at the question of what to do in the current market, some of the things we can consider if this is a stock of interest to you. Now let's begin here, and this is all data monthly. Now I want to take a closer look at this period here. Let's call it from about 96 all the way to the highs here of early 2000. So let's zoom into that period. And here we have a zoomed in version of that chart. So we're talking about this move from, let's call it late 2006. Let's call it even this move right here. Let's capture this move here, which moved the stock from about 750 to about 2024. Thereabout. A huge move at the time. Now this is just a follow-up from the previous video where I was talking about the first move above 69.1, and here we have a perfect example. The stock had begun trading in 86, and at some point in 96 it jumped above 69.1, stayed above that throughout this period. Let's call it almost 1.5 years, maybe even slightly longer. That was good enough to take the stock, and you can see that began this move here, and it stayed above that level until somewhere here. So good enough, as I said, from about $8 to the highs here of the lower 20s. So understanding that when a stock first moves above 69.1, there tends to be something that tends to attract more upside momentum. So it's always good to look for those types of situations if you're inclined to hold stocks over a period of weeks and months. This is the kind of thing that we are all looking for. Momentum instrument that is moving and has a chance of holding on to the gains for this type of a superior move. So there is another example of the Muathe first RSI mountain. Now let me share something else on this chart here before I move on to the current market situation. And there was a breakout here that I noticed while I was recording this. A good breakout during this entry there. Now keep in mind this also meets the minimum requirement for the ultimate Muathe breakout, and I'll probably touch on that in a second. But what I want to discuss here is if you take this breakout line, the previous highs line, and extend it out like that, you can see that here we go below the line and back above it with uniform action. That tends to be a nice entry there. We also eventually bounce on this line. We go below it and back above it for the lows there before going back to new highs. So this same line, when you extend it, was good support based on the lows here and here. Just a side observation. Okay, let me digress a little bit here. We're going to check this breakout here, quality breakout, as we can see whether it met the ultimate Muathe minimum requirements during that time. So let's do that. And so we're talking about this month time frame right there when it broke out, and the breakout was right there above the previous monthly closing high. Bang! All right, let's take a look at that. All right, so we can see here, or I can see, the yes, RSI was moving to 3-year highs. Ditto. We can see here that the MACDs were moving to 3-year highs. Bang. And we can see that the main MACD was also moving to 3-year highs plus. Bang. In fact, we can see here that the stock was moving the RSI and the MACDs to 5-year highs. So definitely it met the minimum requirements before that explosive move. And again, that explosive move we're talking about is the breakout after it cleared this monthly closing high. It breaks out, meeting the minimum requirements for the ultimate Muathe breakout, and you have a chance of owning part of this explosive run. So let's take a look at the current market environment, current chart on the monthly, to see whether we have anything to consider in terms of potential bounce, break, or So let's see what we got on the monthly. So let's go to the current monthly chart. Now, before we take a look at the monthly, let's consider the weekly here. We are seeing a nice gain this week. Stock is up about 5%. Looks good. Now, let's take a look at that monthly chart, because this weekly gain might actually come into better understanding if we take a look at the long-term monthly chart. Now, to understand why the stock is trying to move higher after a huge drop over the last 2 months, you have to go back to this breakout here. And this breakout was the beginning of an explosive move in 2010, right there. Now, what we do is we take that information and draw a straight line, which is the uniformity principle that I discuss, an original concept. So take a look at the description of the video for a link that discusses this in detail. This uniformity principle seems to have telegraphed these lows here because it bounced back above that line with uniform action, which is this re-entry. Right here in late 2016, the stock bounced after that, and now you can see that it is doing its best to hold back and hold support on a monthly chart on this line. Keep in mind, this is August 2nd of 2017, so it's very early on in the month, and already we are seeing some evidence that the stock is doing its best to hold on this line now that we've begun a new month. So if this support holds, then what this suggests is that the stock could be due for some type of a recovery bounce, and maybe that's why we are seeing this 2-week rally already taking place. Now there is another line, and it is the RSI Loss Line right there, and you can see that as of right now it is also showing potential for holding that line. In fact, let me zoom in so we can see that a little bit better. And so if we zoom into this, we can see that it is doing its best to hold that support line. It's a very clear line here connecting RSI lows. If this line holds, it would be suggesting that the stock is due for some type of a month-to-month bounce. Now let's bring back the previous line, which goes back to this entry based on this breakout. Nice entry there on hindsight, and we can take that information and use it. And you can see that, as I discussed previously, it held support here of those lows, and now it is doing its best to hold support here. So clearly this is where one can take an opportunity and say, I'm going to own this as long as those two lines are holding. Hope that makes sense. And we also can see here from a visual perspective that if we break below those two lines, that's going to be telegraphing that there's possibility of continuation of a massive movement lower. So either support for a bounce or a break for a movement lower. Eric Muathe with Muathe.com. As always, good luck, peace, and blessings. ERCS. Yes, 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 yes. Woo. Yeah.